Hi everyone, this is the Q&A for the Career Astrology 101 course. I hope that you have made through the modules that really stood out to you. And again, you can do these modules really, you don't have to follow everything in order. It obviously helps, but I've reiterated some of the basics of astrology each time we go into a new topic. So here are the questions that I have for this month's Q&A. The first question, I'll go through all the questions first, and I will have a timestamp so you can fast forward. I've heard you mention on Instagram that the end of May will be great for Geminis. Can you explain more? Can you elaborate on the South Node and how it's a part of your core personality? I'm having a hard time figuring out my bridge job. I'm a North Node in Aries and a South Node in Libra. I'm looking for new self-care rituals. What planet, what part of my astrology should I look at for insights? And the last question I have is, I'm going through my Saturn return, I'm struggling, and what advice do you have? A couple people asked about the Saturn return, so condensing that into one question. So let's get started with the first question. I've mentioned a couple times that the end of May into the rest of the year for like the next year is going to be really great for Geminis. What does that mean? So Jupiter transit is happening. Let me rewind. So Jupiter right now is in Taurus, and Jupiter is moving into Gemini at the end of May and will be there for the next year. Jupiter is the planet of luck, blessings, and expansion. And so this is going to be an area of your chart where Gemini shows up that is really going to be heightened. And we can look at where it shows up in two ways. So it could mean you have a lot of planets in the third house, which is ruled by Gemini. It could mean that you have a couple key placements in Gemini as well, whether it's your sun in Gemini, your Venus in Gemini. Obviously, for the sun, the moon, the rising, north and south node in Gemini, this transit is going to affect you the most. But I have my Jupiter and my Venus in Gemini. So I know that this will activate like these areas of my life as well. So to give an example, if your sun is in Gemini, that means what comes naturally is going to really be focused on in the next year in ways that you'll feel expansive. You're just like, wow, so many synchronicities. And the sign of Gemini is one that's like very social, building local community. It is very focused on sharing and amassing information. So if you've been thinking about starting a podcast, a Substack, getting back on social media, LinkedIn, whatever and however you define communicating and connecting. I know that some people are like, I don't want to go on TikTok, or I don't feel like I want to have a social media presence. I don't need a social media presence. Then kind of creating more ways for you to connect with people in your community in real life rather than digitally is going to be very much so expansive for you. Um, this is just going to be a wonderful time for voice activation because Gemini is all about your mindset, how you communicate to yourself and to others, which is one of the reasons why I have said 2024 is going to be a year of empowerment as well as also voice activation. So if you feel like you don't have a way to really advocate for yourself in certain relationships in your life or at work, now's the time to kind of think about in what ways would you like to feel like you're more comfortable in speaking up about X, Y, and Z, asking for a raise, being more outspoken about something that's happening at work, wanting to lead a project, or just sharing your boundaries in your romantic relationship or relationship with certain family members. So that's what I mean about, the end of May being a really lucky time for Geminis. Now, it obviously this transit, Jupiter in Gemini, will affect Gemini placements more, but we will all feel this at the collective level. It's just different layers of this kind of astrological transit and forecast. And the collective, we're all kind of thinking like, how can we connect more? Like, what type of information do I want to consume? How do I want to get my information? And some mindset upgrades as well. And so for those, again, with sun, moon, rising north, south node in Gemini, you're going to feel it a lot more. And if you have like Venus or Mars, you'll feel it in those specific areas. So like Mars is about action, Venus is about your values and how you create your own magnetism, how you connect with others. Mercury is about communication. Okay, second question. Can you elaborate more on the South Node and how it's a part of your core personality? So, in one of the modules, I mentioned that I really feel like the South Node is like the deepest part of who you are. Like when you're peeling back, like the layers of self, I feel like it's the South Node, then it's the moon sign, then it's the sun sign, then it's the rising, and kind of like the other things are circling around it. The reason why I say the South Node is such a big core part of your personality because it is the stuff that comes very naturally to you. And the South Node is about past lives and karma, things that just you don't realize that are your skills. And like people just come to you for it and you're like, oh, this is easy for me. And I didn't realize someone would need help in this area. This is just like how I operate. This is stuff that comes naturally to me. Oftentimes I say that when you're kind of stuck in a job or in your career, it means you're too focused on the South Node and you need more focus on the North Node. So again, that core part of who you are, I really feel is like the South Node parts of you. You're just like, I don't know why I just feel so strongly in X, Y, and Z. As an example for myself, my South Node is in Virgo. I really do feel like I really enjoy having structure and order to my life. I have control issues. I just want things to be just so. Like if my schedule kind of gets turned around, I just am like, oh, like it takes me a little while to kind of acclimate and recognize like, okay, my schedule is different. It's not going to be the end of the world. Like I can still get the things I need to get done. So I really do feel like I have a rigidity that I'm like wanting to release and working on releasing as well. And I'm just that type of person that people come to, especially when I was working a corporate job that just kind of fixes things. So that's just part of who I am, someone who's like very systems oriented, detail oriented, likes a schedule. And then my moon sign is Capricorn. So for me, career success is very important. In some ways, I'm a traditionalist. I like things that kind of just are traditional. Even the way I dress is very traditional. I'm like white tank top or a white t-shirt, a long sleeve that's white or black or kind of like a neutral color, and jeans. Obviously, I'm, branching out, but that's really an outfit that I've had for literally forever. Let's see. Third question. I'm having a hard time figuring out my bridge job. I'm a North Node in Aries. Okay, it's pretty normal right now with the North Node in Aries or a North Node in Libra to have just like even more difficulty because you're going through your nodal return if your North Node is in Aries or a reverse nodal return if your North Node is in Libra. So what that means is like your life lessons are being spotlighted right now and you're being asked to release like the ways that you haven't been showing up the best in your relationships and how you are in, let's say, those relationships, and upgrades that need to be happening not only in those relationships, how you kind of operate in those relationships, but also understanding yourself better because there's some identity changes that are happening and a recognition that you want to be leading in a very specific way. Now, to get more insights on where you are leading, where you're being more visionary, being asked to be more of a leader, is if you look at where your North Node is, which is where it is. Which house? So if your North Node is in the third house, that means you're really focused on activating your voice and maybe doing something in PR, media, social media, public speaking, writing. If your North Node is in the fifth house, wanting to be like a performer or a coach or just kind of being more in the spotlight. So that will give you an idea of where things are happening. So yes, with a North Node in Aries and a South Node in Libra, a bridge job is going to be something that allows you to practice and strengthen your leadership skills. So with the North Node in Aries, I find that a lot of them start businesses. So you might want to go to a startup and take on the role of being a project manager, product manager, or leading a department, or just being an early stage employee. It could also just mean working in a more creative space that allows you to be the visionary. So moving away from kind of like collaborating and amalgamating different people's ideas and contributions, and still doing those things, but there's going to be more of a focus on this is you have an idea and you're going to bring all these people to kind of move that idea forward. You can also see a shift in industries as well. You might want to work in industries related to Aries or the house that your North Node is in. So Aries deals with like leadership, empowerment, fitness, military, anything creative. Let's see what else. Yeah, anything that requires it to be very visionary. And then you can look at the house information in the course to give you more details on like, oh, it could also maybe be in this industry or this area. Fourth question. I'm looking for new self-care rituals. What planet should I look at for insights? When it comes to self-care, I really recommend looking at your moon sign. Your moon sign is how you process emotions, what you need to self-soothe when you're feeling stressed. It is your inner world, your emotional processing framework. And when that part of you is feeling seen and feeling like it has what it needs, then you yourself feel a little bit more stable and are able to relate to your emotions and what your emotions are trying to tell you in a much better way. So I'll give a couple examples. So with your moon in Aries, that means you need to move through your emotions. So doing something that raises your heart rate for exercise is very helpful. Starting a creative hobby or project, this is very important. You will need to find ways to channel your anger, your frustration, because with the Aries moon, you can feel angry, irritated for no reason. A lot of my clients have that placement, or not have that placement, but rather feel that way with a moon in Aries. With a moon in Gemini, and making sure that you are taking time to connect with people that really understand you and you can connect on an intellectual level. It's not just about having like friends to connect with, it's about having the right friends to connect with, because a Gemini moon is very cerebral, is always thinking. And so you want to recognize, like, well, what areas do I really enjoy talking about? And you can find more insights when you look at where your moon is. Which house is it in? If your moon in Gemini is in the fifth house, you enjoy talking about maybe TV shows, actors, entertainment. If it's in the eighth house, about finances, resources, healing, how to feel more empowered. Those are some examples there. One more example, if you have a Pisces moon, that means like you need time to be alone, to recharge, to really de not develop, but create space for your more creative, imaginative side. With a moon in Pisces, I find that people really enjoy reading science fiction novels or just kind of getting lost in a different world, whether it's a TV show, a movie, or a book series. And they also might be very musically inclined or musically curious. So learning a new instrument, singing, anything creative for a Pisces moon is very helpful. And also energetic practices like breath work, the sauna, taking showers, spending time near water is going to be really restorative and nurturing. Okay, last question, the one that I had a lot of people send in is, I'm going through my Saturn return. I'm struggling. What advice do you have? So your Saturn return is a very pivotal moment of growth and maturity, happens in your late 20s, early 30s, mid to late 50s, mid to late 80s. Each time it happens, it feels a little bit different. The first one is the most challenging, and it's either 2 or 3 years. And sometimes there's like a pre-period, a post-period. I know that I felt like mine was like like for 5 years. But the exact kind of transit is approximately like 2.5, 3 years. And right now, Saturn is in Pisces. We're entering year 2 of 3 of Saturn in Pisces. Saturn, that planet of maturity, of hard work, and also time, and making sure you have like patience and following like your purpose and you're on your path. When it's in Pisces, it's shining a spotlight on where you've been delusional in your life, how you need to strengthen your relationship with your intuition, how you need to explore your inner imagination and creativity. Now, you want to look at which house Saturn is in so that you understand, like, oh, this is where my lessons are going to be happening. To take it one step further, you could look at your solar return chart. Go to astro-seek.com. You get the chart that has your solar return, and you can see like where your Saturn is to see, okay, this is what's happening for me specifically this year. These are the more specific lessons I'm learning, like which house it's in, as well as where Pisces shows up in your solar return chart as well. But I would say, like, just look at your birth chart to see which house Saturn in Pisces is in, to give you an understanding of, like, this is where I need to double down, give myself more grace, give myself more resources to explore. Let's say your Saturn in Pisces is in the 7th house. That means that you are starting to really realize and recognize how your relationships are really serving you. Are you a different person in each of the relationships you're in, whether it's with a sibling or with a parent? Like, where have you kind of been too much head in the clouds? And how can you really ground down and be like, okay, this is what I need in my relationships. And how can I make that happen? And how can I follow my intuition more when it comes to my relationships as well? Another example is, like, let's say your Saturn is in Pisces in the 11th house. You are thinking about where you can lend your creative, imaginative skills when it relates to like work, in a way that helps people through humanitarian efforts or working in technology. The 11th house is ruled by Aquarius, so it's very forward thinking, very future thinking. So you are also learning how to tap into your uniqueness, your individuality. It's a big lesson, and also why freedom is important to you. So those are a couple different examples. Look at where it shows up, where Saturn shows up in your house, which house it's in, to glean more insights as to where these changes are really, really happening. But know that your Saturn return is always going to be a little bit challenging. Don't force anything. Don't, like, it's worse when you're like, I just want to get out of it. Just kind of like move with the ebbs and flows of what you're experiencing. Be observant, be non-judgmental. Look at your moon sign for how you can better self-care, and also really develop and put in a good spiritual routine in place that's going to be so, so, so helpful for you. And know that this is not forever. Know that you're supposed to feel uncertain. It doesn't mean you can't be confident about who you are becoming. We all go through this. Oftentimes it feels like a lonely road. You go through dark nights of your soul, aka rock bottoms. You go through spiritual awakenings, but really at the end of your Saturn return, there's so much clarity. So many people, they move to a new city, they start a business, they might go for another like degree, they might shift into a new industry, or feel more confident in where they currently are. But it's an important passage, of, like, of just maturity, of life, of growing up, and it really does serve your highest good. So keep on repeating that. And one of the books I really like to read is The Alchemist. I found that it to be very, very helpful in understanding, this is my journey, this is my hero's journey, and this is part of the experience. All right, hope this Q&A was helpful. Give me some feedback. I think I'm going to be hosting another one in a couple months. So let me know what questions you have, and I will add it to the list. And also, which parts of the course can be more clear? You need some extra insights, extra materials. I'm happy to supplement, and add. All right, have a wonderful day, evening, weekend, week ahead, whenever you're listening to this recording.